finally leave the basement after Labor Day, with plans to hit the road in key swing states.
Here to break down his strategy shift, president and partner at Maslansky and Partners, Lee Carter. Lee, welcome. So we see a little bit of a shift here from Joe Biden. He's going to hit the campaign trail, albeit a little bit delayed still. And he is going to address the violence going on in the nation, even though there was just an entire convention where he didn't mention it at all. Regardless, there's been a tonal shift. Why?
So I think a couple things. One, I think it was probably always his plan to come out stronger after the conventions. I think he had a strategy of laying low and letting things play out. And now he's going to get out there with his message. But I think it's important that we take note of this shift on the violence, because I think this is something that's really, really important to the American people. And I think that his campaign might have misjudged how important it was to the American people and what it meant behind it. I think a lot of people on the left were thinking that if you were concerned about violence, if you're concerned about law and order, that also meant that you did not support Black Lives Matter. And I think the two are not mutually exclusive. And I think that's something that he's realized, and I think it's something he's recognized is absolutely essential. He has to address the concern of the American people, which is absolutely about their individual and personal safety.
Lee, hold on. Was it really always his plan? Because we heard a lot from the Biden campaign, a lot of confidence about this basement strategy is working. We could do this all the way to Election Day. And then his convention happened, the Republican convention happened, violence was not denounced, and suddenly Joe announces, I'm going to leave my basement. It feels like a reaction to a tightening race where he can't hide the whole time.
Look, I think that there's no question about it. I think that what he's realized, I was just reading some transcripts of some focus groups about undecided voters. And one of the undecided voters said this. He said, I feel like Donald Trump is defining Joe Biden. I need to hear from Joe Biden. Who is Joe Biden? Only 30% of the American people right now understand what Joe Biden's platform is. 2/3 of Americans know that he is not Donald Trump. He stands against Donald Trump, but they don't know what he is for. And that is a big mistake and a big misjudgment that I think the campaign made. I think that they thought it was going to be enough just to not be Donald Trump in order to beat Donald Trump. And that's not going to be enough. We're seeing the polls tightening. We're seeing in swing states that it's getting closer and closer. And so Joe Biden needs to make his case to the American people, and it has to. It absolutely must include how are you going to keep the American people safe, because that is one of Americans' it's one of their biggest concerns right now, that and the economy. And so he's going to have to come out with a message on both of those. So I think to a certain extent, you're right. I think he's probably realized he can't just lay back anymore, that it's time for him to get out there. I'm not sure that he didn't have a strategy to always go out there a little bit more after the conventions and be more public. But absolutely right now, it is essential that he tells his message. Because if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to tell it for you, and it's not going to be favorable.
Lee, really quickly, I want to believe those polls are tightening, because I want to believe that we can have our finger on the pulse of the election to see how it's moving. But how much credence should we give the polls, knowing what happened in 2016 and knowing this idea that many are afraid or unwilling to answer which way they would vote to a pollster? So how much credence do we give these movements in the polls anyway?
Well, I think that you have to look at a couple of things. One, don't look at nationwide polls. I think they only tell you directionally what's happening. So you'll understand where sentiment's moving. You're not going to understand the Electoral College by looking at it. You need to look at swing states. Two, you need to look at intensity. So when you look at how likely are people to vote, that's another thing that's really important. The other thing that you really need to look at is independence. And right now, the independent race is tightening. There was a poll that came out this week with CBS YouGov that released that said that Trump is ahead by 10 points with independents. The race is going to be won and lost with independents because Democrats and Republicans have pretty much decided who they're going to vote for. It's those independent voters who could go either way, and we've got to keep our eye on those folks. The other thing you've got to look at is there's some interesting polling questions out there. There's a question about who are you going to vote for, but then there's a question about who do you think your neighbor is going to vote for. That's also a big indicator because a lot of people are afraid to share their opinions.
All right,
Lee Carter, we got to leave it here, but thanks so much as always. Great stuff.
Great to see you guys.
Thanks, Lee.